And we are live, back at it on the Victory Degree podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Trey Edwards. Trey, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Really looking forward to this. I think a good place for us to get started is I'll just, kind of your life story in bullet points. So I'll just rattle off a couple bullet points here, and then we'll kind of dive into some of these specific topics. So, born and raised in Compton, California. You are an NBA analyst at The Athletic. You're also a school teacher. You played college basketball. You're an assistant basketball coach for De Anza, which growing up in the Bay Area, I had a lot of friends that went to De Anza, so very familiar with the college. So that's kind of funny. You also worked for UPS, which I thought was interesting. So that's another part of your life story. And so your journey is very unique. And the fact that you were born in Compton, made it all the way to, the sports journalism world, I think is very impressive. You had a lot of stops in between. Talk to me a little bit about growing up in Compton and then how you were able to make it all the way from there to sports journalism and then some of your experiences within the NBA too. But let's start with Compton.
Man, Compton is such it's a small town. I know people hear the name and they think it's bigger than what it is. Um, no hospital, no downtown, you know, tons of culture. I mean, a lot of success comes out of that city. And, yeah, man, it's just growing up during the 90s. It was pretty intense with the gang culture and stuff like that, and a lot of gang violence and things of that nature. But was one of those challenges that I was able to, not only survive but make it out of. But I will say that despite those, the situation that was going on during the time I was, in adolescence, Compton taught me a lot of how that if I could survive there, I can survive anywhere. Or looking at everybody else's situation, right? You meet friends that their rock bottom is different than the rock bottom I probably grew up on. You know what I mean? Like their rock bottom is under $1,000 in their checking account, and mine is like, how am I gonna make $20 stretch for 2 weeks? You know what I mean? And it's not what bothers them, but it's just it taught me on survival and not only in street smarts, to apply that in every part of my life.
So how did you, I mean, you mentioned some of the struggles that you went through growing up in Compton. Did you have like a role model or somebody that you looked up to, or was it maybe basketball that you looked to for maybe an escape from some of the things that you were, experiencing in your day-to-day life, or kind of what was your relationship with basketball at that time?
Yeah. So a little bit about my parents and just not even having them present in my life. You know what I mean? My mom went to jail when I was, I think, 3 years old, and my father was murdered when I was 9. So they weren't really there as much. Um, so my great grandmother raised me, and she also worked all the time. So I'm from the latchkey kid era, where if your listeners don't know what latchkey kid is, you're literally wearing a key around your neck, walk home, lock the door, TV dinners, raised by the TV. I was forced to, grow up fast. And over time, I was distracted by a lot of things. And it took for me to go out to Portland, Oregon to visit some cousins after my father was murdered. And I was introduced to the game of basketball. And I really enjoyed it. But my cousin Bruce was like 6 months older than me. And he played basketball. His dad really coached him and, paid for my camps for me to go. I went to Terrell Brandon's camp at Kenny Carr out in Portland, Oregon. And I came back inspired to like play this new sport and play with other people. And I wasn't that good. I was emulating Michael Jordan at the time. Clearly I wasn't 6'6". I was, like 8 years old at this time, sticking my tongue out and just trying my best to, be him. And over time, I had a series of coaches that saw the potential in me and, just really wanted to be there for me and help me. And basketball kept me off the streets. I spent majority of my teenage years and preteen years at the Compton Salvation Army, where I earned a nickname Black Jesus, not for basketball purposes, but Salvation Army being tied to Christianity, and they had their own like religious corps and stuff like that, where they would do city work and feeding the homeless, community giveaways and stuff like that. So I spent majority of my childhood there, and yeah, those individuals, Guy LaGuardia, Coach Lawson out of there, gentleman named Dwayne, that was my first basketball coach. And so many people I can name that were very instrumental in, teaching me the game of basketball, teaching me about life, making the right decisions, and staying out of trouble.
Do you think your life would have been different if you hadn't found the game of basketball and the
Absolutely.
people who were able to shape your experience and teach you certain things about life that brought you to where you are today?
Absolutely. I was sidetracked. I was like 11, 12 years old, and decided to go choose the street life. And after a while, like, you know, it was a very mature lifestyle. You know what I mean? And potentially life changing, life altering if you're doing the wrong things and caught. And I actually got in trouble, and it was an eye opener. So I was too young to actually really get in trouble. But it was an eye opener, and it was like, yo, I could throw this all away really quick. And that was an eye opener, and I wanted to play basketball. So uh, it was an easy choice for me after that.
I saw, I forgot who posted on Twitter, but basically sports participation amongst teens is down across the board. So basketball, football, from I think 2019 to 2022, I think football saw like a 13% reduction in participation. And that to me was concerning because as someone who also grew up playing sports, it teaches us so much about life, right? It teaches you certain things that you can carry over to your own life. Certainly taught you a lot. Um, I guess maybe really quick sidetrack here, like how important do you think sports are for teens growing up, and is it something that you would recommend everybody at least try? At least try a sport, give it your all, and see if maybe you like it, and at the end of the day, worst case scenario, you learn a lot about yourself and about how to live life the right way.
Yeah, well, how I look at it, as a former teacher and being around children that were, getting involved in different activities, I would say not only sports, but just all activities. Just have introduce your child to something new, because you never know what sticks. I think the thing about sports sometimes is these modern day parents, which are my age group, probably yours. I'm not sure. I'm closer to 39. Um, Most of the parents are living through their kids, so they're a little bit pushy, and the kids aren't able to just treat it as a physical activity. It's more of a early professional, groundwork of like, hey, this is what you need to do. You got a trainer. You're not allowed to be a kid. Can't do these childish things. You know what I mean? And selling these dreams of like being a professional, but you burn out so quick. Like, I mean, I wasn't playing nearly as half as games as the kids are playing today, but being on the AAU system, I definitely was, tracking about 100+ games a year. You know what I mean? And by the time I was 27 years old, I was kind of mentally exhausted with the game. You know what I mean? Like I love this so much, but it was not enough for me to go to a country and play it out for, maybe 10 more, not even 10 more years, maybe till I'm 33, 34 years old. I just didn't think it was worth it like that. And that I could just go play it whenever I wanted at some park if I really had an itch.
Right. I'm going to say a couple words and then you tell me how they're related.
Mhm.
School teacher and Drake. So I think I saw a story that you were at a Drake party maybe, but I'll let you tell us the full story.
Yeah, I got invited. Well, I was a plus one with several other people. Um, Drake had this place out, and I'm not sure if he's even still at the residence in Hidden Hills, but um, he threw a party at 4th of July, and we knew we were going. We had been around him a few times, so it wasn't like a surprise, but just that he was having a party finally in Los Angeles. This was July 4th, 2016, I want to say. But Yeah, it was, he actually, no, most people don't have parties at their house. Maybe Jamie Foxx, if that. Usually people have like a venue they rent out, but he had it at this spot. And I mean, he has probably one of the sickest houses ever, you know what I mean? But it's no service. He got a grotto, you know what I mean, with the waterfall. He has a basketball court. The house is literally, literally is massive. Where he joked about in one of the songs. I think it started from the bottom. He had to use the walkie-talkie, and it's just true. You get to a certain part of the house where you just don't know where you are, or you have to like locate your friends, but there's no service, so you can't use a cell phone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure how that's set up for that. Maybe it's purposeful, but um, yeah, it was, so everybody and their mama was there. You know what I mean? From Derrick Rose to Tony Allen to entertainers to most beautiful women in the world. But it was a fun experience, and glad I got to experience that.
When you were at the party, did you look around and say to yourself like, "Wow, I can't believe some of the people that I'm seeing." Like, were you starstruck, or was it kind of just like, "Oh yeah, that's hey, that's D Rose," or hey, that's so and so.
No, not necessarily. To be honest, I haven't been starstruck since probably like 2009. Um, I, like first I used to think like, what is life? And then I just kind of was just finding myself in certain situations where I was just running into people, and people actually getting a chance to. And I've never been like, I've never really kind of like super fanned out. You know what I mean? I look at everybody as kind of like humans. Um, and like we all do something same. You know what I mean? They're just really talented at what they do, and get the exposure and stuff like that. But yeah, no, my last moment was meeting Darren Williams, 2009. So like I was like, he was like one of my favorite point guards at the time. We're like 1 year apart, so that was even awkward. Like it was kind of like I was like, oh snap, like it's D Will, like you know what I mean? Nice to meet you. And I like call one of my high school teammates from back. It's like, yo, I just met D Will. Da, da, da. And like I had a conversation with the person I was with. They were like, yo, you can't do that. Like you just gotta like be cool about it. And like after that, it kind of like it sucked, but it was like, okay, I guess this is going to be my life from here on out. Like I'm going to be constantly meeting people, and it was right. It prepared me for a moment of like being able to be around and just treat everybody normal. So yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, the the real NBA heads will know, like 2008, 2009, that whole like D Will versus CP3. Like there was a good chunk of time where people were, D Will was in that debate for best point guard in the NBA. Those Utah Jazz years were something else. I remember watching him with, AK-47 and Mehmet
Hmm.
Okur, and I mean that Jazz team was, it was a fun team to watch, and D Will was kind of leading the whole thing. So it was cool to see him come up, and he was also a bigger guard, right? Like he wasn't, he was tall, he was, had a little meat to his bones, but yeah, watching him play, it was something else, man. He was gifted on the court.
Yeah, absolutely. I was Team D Will for sure.
So you were also a school teacher. So
Mhm.
lead me a little bit through that portion of your life, how you got to teaching, and then what you did after that.
Uh, how I got to teaching, I switched my majors like I think my senior year, junior year, one of them, and got into education. But I really didn't. I just did it just because I just didn't want to take this math class. I think I just kind of was like, oh, I don't want to take this. I got to take that class. They're talking about I have to stay another year to graduate or something like that, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Let's switch. What could get me out of here at this particular time? And I didn't even like think about it because I thought I was going to be playing basketball a little bit longer. And after I finally finished playing around 26, 27, we all have this, if you're an ex-athlete and your career has come to an end, you need to figure out what's next, because life is just not about your your professional or um, active time with the sport. It ends, but life, you got so much other stuff to learn, and how you're gonna like be back in society, and how you're gonna be a functional adult. And I was really struggling with that. Like I had no idea. I took some odd jobs, like where I did I sold cable installs for AT&T Uverse, where I was like soliciting, You know what I mean? Going to different houses and knocking on the door and trying to sell cable installs. And I think I took another gig before that. Yeah, and that's how I ended up at UPS. And being a sorter, that taught me so much about like, and so much respect for people that work at UPS. Like it's a grind, man. It's a real grind, and to see people that have been there for 20 years, understanding the benefits and just hard work. You know what I mean? Like I was just lazy, and I was like it taught me a lot immediately. But when I finally got called up to teach, um, I was I was nervous. I was nervous not to teach, but like what people would have thought of me because I didn't make it to the standard day. I felt people looked at me as like, oh, I got to make it to the NBA in order to like be accepted back home or whatever. And actually, it was the complete opposite. You know what I mean? Like no one really cares, and I think that's the thing that we as humans kind of think in our head, that people aren't really thinking these things about us when it's truly us. We're the voice in our heads that's like, you know, creating this fear. So when I became a teacher, everybody thought that was super cool. And I thought I was going to be a teacher for 20 years, but I got a chance to do it for 6. And it was one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said earlier about ex-athletes and kind of what they do after they retire. Um, Unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of cases where an athlete will retire, and then within a couple of years, they're broke. They've spent all their money. Um, but then on the flip side, you also have other athletes who seem to be doing really well post retirement. So, the Richard Shermans of the world, Tom Brady, Shannon Sharp, the list kind of goes on and on. But what do you think differentiates the athletes who maybe figure it out after they retire and then those who don't?
I think it's just more so like being told, like when you're in the moment, you think all this stuff's going to last forever, right?
Hmm.
Whether you're too cool to sign an autograph, whether you don't want to make these appearances, you know what I mean? The little checks that aren't $1 million ain't nothing. You'll pass up on it just because you just think this moment is just it's allotted. And like time goes by, things come to an end. And I think that's the harsh pill of reality to accept. And when you're, I mean, I think that the thing that why athletes sometimes lose money or they make bad investments and things like that because they're solely not focused on it. They don't get a chance to fully immerse themselves. They just throw a bunch of money into it and think that okay, it's like buying a plant without watering it. You know what I mean? Like and these are the situations that come in terms. And I think now in current day, guys are now getting these equity deals or being able to throw money in and they don't have to do such a heavy leg lift. When back then it was kind of like buy some property, become like own this or own food chains. And this is how you would learn, you know what I mean? Like how you would do it. But like it's way more, way too many options now to have you know what I mean, have a steady stream outside of your paycheck that you're getting for playing sports.
Right. Yeah. I always, I that whole like economy and financial side of athletes and sports, I always find interesting. There's a lot of Twitter accounts that go into. I think Caleb Williams recently said that, the team that he gets drafted to, he wants, equity in that team. So I think even athletes are starting to get a little more, like you were saying, a little more immersed in that and understanding the importance of having something else besides just the checks from playing the game. Um, Trey, I want to get into a super fascinating part of your life. You were a part of an NBA entourage. And for those who might not be familiar with the term or what that is, can you give us like a brief description of kind of what your role was, what your responsibilities were, and maybe some of the experiences that you had?
Well, I mean, it's just like any other friend group, man. Like you got friends, some you might be cool, you might be friends with a cool guy. You know what I mean? Like and that's everybody likes the cool guy. So in this particular moment, it's no different than that. It's just the entourage. You know what I mean? There's someone that is basically famous, ridiculously famous. And from outside looking in, other people are gonna ask you, "What's it like being their friend? What's it like doing this and that and this?" Like, it's like you and your boys, like any other time. You know what I mean? I think that, I guess, in a situation, if you're particularly living with a person, or, you know what I mean, you're spending a instant amount of time to a point with somebody, you know, you tack on duties. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing of more so like, you're not just gonna be able to just lay around and not do something. You know what I mean? Like if that person's going to the gym, you're going to the gym with them. If they ain't going to eat, you going to eat. If they leaving, you leaving. You flying with them. So it's a cool experience because, you know, like in this particular one, you know what I mean, I was such a super NBA fan that like I got to see the behind the scenes, but it also like tainted my view on a lot of stuff, on like how stuff goes on. Like seeing a player being injured on ESPN ticker, but like there's some internal stuff of like maybe the coach and the player are not seeing eye to eye and they're working on a trade, or um, you know, this guy, it's just different things. It's the perspective of it. I'm like, dang, he really wasn't hurt. He was, hanging out or something, like, you know what I mean? And social media makes it a little bit different because when I first started, hanging out or having access, the access I did, this was pre social media. I mean, it was just like MySpace going on, you know what I mean? But it was a little different, you know what I mean? It was a little bit more mystique. And then as the social media era, being around in that time, it was kind of more like you couldn't really go anywhere because if they're not tracking the player, they're tracking the entourage. So they're like, that player got to be there, or they're going to be in that spot. You know what I mean? So um, yeah, it's been interesting, but overall, it's a cool experience. You know what I mean? If anybody gets a chance to do it, because you just get to see life, from a different perspective, different
Talk to me a
access,
little
more
bit.
so, I would say.
All right. Talk to me a little bit about, I guess one thing that I always think of is the fame that comes with being an NBA player, especially if you're, if you're a good NBA player, if you're up there, I mean, I don't think LeBron is going out to, to the grocery store. I don't think he can do a lot of the normal things that, maybe you or I could do. I think I remember reading a story that Cristiano Ronaldo posted saying, dude, I just want to be able to take my kids to the park to play some soccer. Like I can't do even that without getting surrounded by paparazzi. So from your experience, what you were able to see behind the scenes, like how do players typically deal with that fame? And then I guess, does it ultimately depend on the player, or like what were some of the tactics that they used to deal with some of the fame? Did some of them enjoy it? Were they like, oh, I don't know about this whole fame thing. I actually don't enjoy this. Like what was your experience with that?
I think it varies. There definitely is a level of fame, like, you know what I mean. Like, God rest his soul, Kobe Bryant had to use he if he went out, you know, uh, he would have to leave restaurants through the back entrance. Like it would be have a special go through the kitchen and leave that way because he's just massive. You know what I mean? Like it's just an icon. You know what I mean? Like, and then you got a regular NBA player who may just be in the NBA. It might not be just a hassle, but the difficulty part about it is someone spotting you who's a fan of the team or just maybe just want to autograph and interrupting your time with your friends, or your significant other or whatever. You're just trying to have a good meal and somebody's like, hey, like, can I get a picture? And it's like, if you say no, you're gonna get a bad review. If you say yes, your significant other gonna be annoyed because you took time to interrupt, you know what I mean, for some stuff. So it comes with the territory, but understanding it, I can see it being frustrating. And some guys, especially if they're drafted young, they don't know how to do stuff on their own. So that stuff, when you have to get back into reality, I think that's the toughest adjustment. You know what I mean? If you haven't been to the bank your entire career, you got drafted at 19 and you don't go to the bank, you ain't been inside the bank, and you just know like, hey, there's guaranteed money on this card. Like certain things, you can't go to the grocery store like everybody else. If you're gonna go, you gotta go wee hours of the night, or be in a community where everybody is kind of just like you, where you're not the biggest person there. You know what I mean? Or it's just normal. So I think those situations are a little different. Some guys don't even drive. They don't have their own, they got their drivers. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of things that are removed. So I always thought it was interesting when like, politics or um, like a serious issues going on, and they ask a celebrity like, so what do you think? And it's like they live in a bubble. They're not even you know, they're not even like consuming that stuff. They might have a phone or whatever, but like, being African American and getting pulled over by the police and get told to get out or gun drawn on them, like that's less than likely to happen to one of those players who of high status. You know what I mean? Because they're recognizable at this point. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, I'm sorry to pull you over, but like you were speeding, but like, can I get an autograph? Or, you're gonna get yourself out of certain situations unless it's just really crazy. But like, you're not dealing with the day to day that the average folk are dealing with anymore.
I think I saw Chris Olave, the Saints wide receiver. I think he got pulled over
Mm-hmm.
recently, and I think he,
Mm-hmm.
he got out of the car and he told the cop, he was like, "Hey man, like I'm Chris Olave," thinking that maybe that would get him, out of the situation, and the cop was
And
like,
I'm sure it
"Yeah,
worked before. So that's why I
right,
think he used it. You know what I mean? That's the one thing. And it's just kind of like, it kind of gives you like, it makes you feel like you have immunity, but you don't.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
sometimes you got people that do care and some people that don't care. You know what I mean? Like it just depends, but they still got to do their job at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's normally how it is.
right." That kind of leads me to my next point, which is this Twitter account that you and your friends created,
Mhm.
called NBA Bubble Life.
Mhm.
Back during the COVID years, the bubble in Orlando, and the whole goal of the Twitter account, at least from what I saw, was basically just highlighting what the players were doing all day while they were stuck in the bubble in Orlando. I think you guys even had like a I want to say it was like a shotgun leaderboard or something, like players would like
Yep.
shotgun a beer, then you guys would have like a
Yep.
leaderboard. And I want to say it was from your account, but somebody had posted saying how they've never seen LeBron James just like walk around so freely, like throughout the hotel room, kind of just he was living his life without any concern, and it was weird for him because like whenever he goes out in public, he always has to be wary of his surroundings, of the
Mhm.
situation. And so I thought that was really interesting, and kind of why I asked you the previous question of how do they deal with this fame. And I'm sure for LeBron it was kind of weird too, like, hey man, I can walk around this hotel, I'm surrounded by NBA, other NBA players, like I don't have to
Yeah.
necessarily be worried
He's
about
just
where I'm
LeBron.
at.
He's just
So
regular LeBron to them.
right, right. So I thought that was super interesting. But maybe talk to me a little bit about like the Twitter account, like what inspired you guys to create that?
Yeah, so we started the account. A friend of mine had got furloughed during the pandemic at the start, and a lot of people were dealing with losing their jobs or trying to the uncertainty of where the world was going at a particular time. And I just solely wanted to help. And at the beginning, he was not interested in that idea. So I was like, when I was on summer break, I was like, yo, I'll start it off, and things kind of picked up, and I kind of like manipulated it a little bit to a point of like, all right, I'm gonna tweet myself and be like, yo, y'all see this new account? Because I have a large following, so like that brought eyes on it, and then more people will start to look. And first day we got 2,000 followers in like 6 hours, and then after that it just got a little crazy. And then we had a friend, my man Jeff Attila. He was like, yo, y'all gonna get 50K, trust me. And like day two was like 25, 30,000 like followers. I got up to 50K. I'm like, wow, okay. And then it was like we was trying really hard to get 100K in 7 days. So we got in like 7.5 or something like that and a half. And I think we peaked out at 121. But crazy, that week felt like it was 3 weeks. Not gonna lie. You know what I mean? It wasn't even like a lot because we did it before the game started. That was another thing too. Because when the game started, now you got interruption, you got practice, you got all these other things. So the time where guys was just getting acclimated with the bubble, we took advantage of that, full advantage, and gave everybody an inside look, but stayed anonymous and just kind of most accounts focus on negativity. We focused on all positive. We had nothing bad to say about any players that were in the bubble, and it just yeah, it was a great thing. It turned out pretty good.
Well, what was your opinion of of the bubble? I don't know if you saw Lou Williams, I think yesterday or today, said that the Clippers stopped trying because they thought that, the ring was going to be viewed as, I guess, less meaningful from the bubble. Um, I guess what was your opinion on that whole experience? And do you believe in the narrative that the Lakers won the Mickey Mouse ring?
Nah, I think basketball still has to be played. You know what I mean? Like I get it. You're taken out of your rhythm. You know, you got other distractions. Some guys miss their families. You know, some people, you know, they run differently. Like the focus is different. You know what I mean? To say it's a glorified open gym or whatever it is, like I said, there was no just guys were more rested than anything. There's no travel time. You're getting all the treatment that you need. You know what I mean? You eating healthy. You know what I mean? You spent most of your days like just chilling at the pool. And I think the idea, it was more of a mental toll than anything because you're thinking about how the rest of the world is you know, dealing with this, but then also you're away from your family. If you got kids and things of that nature, like you miss them over time. You're thinking about what's really important. And although they went to go play basketball still, it just, yeah, it was good. It was good basketball though. I would say it was really entertaining.
You talk about players being more focused than ever. I think you brought up a story of how once you went out to a club and you saw LeBron James icing his knees in the club.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to me a little bit about the mentality that players have about going out, about partying. Like, would it be like a random Tuesday night and players would get together and be like, hey, like, let's go out here? Or, if a certain player from a certain team is in town, like, hey, let's link up after the game. Like, what was that? What was that culture like?
Um. Yeah. I mean, it's just like us, man. Honestly, you get into a new town, depending on what time you land, you want to have a good time. It's not like football, so there's no curfews. You know what I mean? Just make the right choices and don't end up in jail. But you know, it was cool. You know what I mean? Like again, being in those spaces and you know what I mean? Like I met LeBron, I want to say 2009, 2010, when Shaq was with the Cavs, stuff like that. And yeah, he did like an appearance. So like that's why we ended up in that spot. Like, oh, LeBron's gonna be there, so like cool and very strict security. And yeah, they was just having a good time, but just introduced himself and kept it going. But asking for ice pack is like some very Kobe-esque stuff. That's something Kobe Bryant would do. Just thinking about the big picture of it. Like if I actually have to be here, I'm picking up a check to party. I'm still going to be caring about the maintenance of it. I don't want an ice bucket for my champagne or ice bucket for my knees. You know what I mean? Or certain things. You're not going to be sticking it barefoot in the buckets of ice, but like being able to, just chill and just recover. That's high IQ. That's credit to LeBron. LeBron's probably like the greatest of all time when it comes to taking care of your body. You know what I mean? Like that's why he's able to perform at such a high level at this age.
Where's LeBron in your GOAT rankings?
Maybe three
Okay, who do you have
to
in
see
front of
with
him?
my own eyes. But I think that's just like I, I just grew up on. I thought basketball was about winning. You know what I mean? And not saying that he's not a winner. He's definitely a winner. Like I said, arguably he has a seat at the table. But like again, in certain ways, he wants to be number one. I just think it's hard to beat out Michael Jordan. The only person I think that is like very close to beating out Michael Jordan is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Interesting. Yeah, it's I don't know. People always like to bring up the goat debate, and I just asked you because I was genuinely curious. But I
Mm-hmm.
also think it's one of those things. I spoke with Roland Lazenby. He wrote MJ the Life, the biography. He wrote Showboat, a biography on Kobe Bryant, and we were chatting back and forth about the Warriors or the Bulls. 96, 97 Bulls or the Warriors, who would win that. He was saying it's like people like to have these debates, but at the end of the day, first of all, it's impossible to know. Second of all, the game has changed so much since that era. Right, the game was a lot more physical when MJ was there. You had hand checking. Now the game's a lot more different. Different focus on the three. So it's one of the things that you're never going to know. And at the end of the day, people have their favorites, and that's what they stick with. So I think it's interesting for maybe us as fans to debate, but in reality, it's one of those things that you're kind of never truly going to know. So I
Yeah.
don't know. One of those things is interesting to bring up every now and then. I wanted to ask you your time with the Athletic. Um, you were a sports journalist, NBA journalist, and I saw on your Instagram that you had a couple stories still up of you asking players, questions after the game in the locker room and stuff. And I think you asked Melo at one point. This is when Melo was on the Blazers. He had been playing really good defense that night, and you asked him, "Hey, what do you have to say to the people that say that you don't play defense?" And you got a laugh out of him, and it seemed like he enjoyed the question. For you as a reporter, like, what's your mentality going into those questions and those interviews with players? Like, what was your goal with the questions that you were asking?
Honestly, I knew other again. I look at it as whether I have a relationship with the players or not. What's a quality question? Am I paying? Am I really watching the game? Am I focusing on the story that's going into the game and the story after the game? You know what I mean? Because like again, Melo had been out the league in Portland. I gave him a shot, and obviously they were talking about him being selfish, and it was just all this negativity, and it wasn't focusing on the things that he actually was doing well, and he played really good defense against Phoenix that night. So I was just like, look, man, they say you don't play defense, but I've seen defense out there and it was very effective and it secured the win for y'all. Like, so, what I mean? He's like, who, me? Defense? All right. You know what I mean? Like, and he was able to laugh it off. But like, yeah, I just try to go in and follow the storyline and ask a question that, because I don't think journalists ask stupid questions. Um, but I think they're not reading the room sometimes in a particular moment. They just have a list of questions that they wanted to ask at the particular moment, but I think it's more so about understanding the flow of the game and what was actually happening during that time. It's like that's the one thing that I always used to be, like Phoenix was really bad that year. And sometimes I would ask Monty stuff, but sometimes I wouldn't. It would be mostly with the players. And I got real close with Devin Booker at the time, trusted me a lot. And I would talk to him about preparation, and I would talk to him about some stuff I would see out there. So I remember they lost a game, and he wasn't beating himself up about it. It was like a last shot attempt. He head faked, and he kind of like tried to sidestep and shoot the jumper, and the time expired. And I said, "Can I ask you something? Why did you do the head fake instead of just getting the shot up?" And he was like, "Man, I don't know, man. I wish I could get that playback." And I'm like, "Shoot it! Don't hesitate, because again, like you thinking way too much. You know what I mean?" And then he respected the idea that I was bold enough to even give him tips in that situation, because I don't know if he knew I played or not, but like it was what I seen. You know what I mean? And I get it. You're not the athlete's best friend when you're in these situations, because sometimes they love you and sometimes they hate you. And I'm not here to bash the player. I'm always looking to promote the good in the player. I understand when Isaiah Thomas was with the Washington Wizards, I told him about, if you're not balling, I'm not talking about you. But if you're hooping, I'm going to talk about you. I'm not going to sit here and trash you just because of a bad game. You know what I mean? People make a living off of that. And stories stick. You know what I mean? We create villains. And you know what I mean? If you busy and you ironing your clothes or you making breakfast and you just hearing the daytime television in a situation and you constantly hear negativity, then that's the portrayal of that person. You know what I mean? Whether they're a good person or not, I think it's the portrayal that you think. And then when they're actually having good games, it's a shock. You know what I mean? Like they not there for a reason. I think that's something that's the game I don't like to play.
You've obviously been around, I mean, so many athletes throughout the years. I have a quote from you here. You said, so you went to Jamarcus Russell's birthday party. I think you said that Steven Jackson was there, Monte Ellis. By the way, those Warriors teams also super fun. The We Believe Warriors. I'm a Sacramento Kings fan, unfortunately. Maybe fortunately not, because we're actually finally good. But yeah, for 16 years we were terrible. But I remember those Warriors teams just being around in that area. Um, and you said you were quoted as saying, "Wow, I'm hanging out with Steven Jackson. I'm 20. This is bigger than life." Um, Obviously, having the experiences that you've had, what has been maybe like the most surprising thing that you learned about these athletes? You talked about, hey, they're just normal people that are extremely gifted at what they do and are maybe hardworking. But what was like some of the most surprising things that you learned that maybe you didn't realize before?
Guys' eating habits. I mean, you got the really disciplined ones and you got the undisciplined ones, and they're still out there just what? Like, how you just had 30? You only slept 3 hours. How did you do this? You just had, you know what I mean? Like, um, I was talking to some of the Nike reps back in, let's say September, early September during the World Basketball Classic in Lincoln here in New York. And they were talking about how Kobe Bryant had McDonald's before his 81-point game. And, like everybody's always talking about, oh, have this balanced diet, have this, have that. Like some people just do whatever they want and you can't do nothing about it. You know what I mean? And he already was on a mission for that. You know what I mean? Like Michael Jordan would play golf until it's time for shoot around, you know what I mean? And still go get 50. So it's just some people that's just, like insanely just talented. And I think that was probably the most impressive thing and a huge separation for me. And anybody else that's watching from their couch.
So I guess to that point, like how much, again, from your experience, like how much do you think it is natural ability, and then how much of it is hard work, discipline, all of these things that people like to bring up when they talk about why certain athletes are more successful than others. And I think even, taking the NBA specifically, the difference at the top is so minimal, right? Between the players, the Steph Currys of the world, maybe the Devin Booker you mentioned, and then the players maybe averaging, let's say 10 to 12 points a game. But for you, like from your experience, like what do you think truly separates some of the greats from, let's say, your average NBA player?
I think now you question if guys really love it. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like it's one thing. I think the love of the game changes. And we talked about like the percentage of sports going down. Some of them don't love it. They love what comes with it. And then the greats, they love it. They watch it. They watch games that aren't theirs. They watch all levels of basketball. They study it. You know what I mean? They do it all. You know what I mean? Like these are the people that are true. If you can ask some young players, yo, you watching the game? Like we hanging out? Nah, I don't be watching them games. It has me question a lot of things because like, do you like basketball? But I also don't want to be like, you got to be one dimensional and don't be a, you know, you can't have a life outside of basketball, but you have to look at it from a perspective of like how bad, you know what I mean? Like Kobe was very, uh, I feel like I'm saying his name a lot, but he was a, a pure example of like someone really dedicated to the game and their craft and how to, be obsessive with it. And whether it's healthy or not, um, it translates to success. You know what I mean? There's very few guys that get to be at the top of be in the conversation of being one of the best guys in the league, and that's very rare. You know what I mean? LeBron's one of the best guys for roughly 16 years of his career. You know what I mean? It's just only a few that scratch the surface and could potentially say like I was better than LeBron James that year.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to think about. I mean, read so many stories of Steph Curry and his preparation and attention to detail, and you read all these stories. In Kobe's biography, he would stay after the game and he would practice for specific situations where, for example, they're down by two, and he needs to miss a free throw to get the rebound, and so he would be in the gym practicing missing. It's just like that attention to detail that is so crazy, but it's what made, like you said, it's what made Kobe so special, and it's what continues to make these other players so special. So um, I'm always fascinated by that because even, taking any other career like podcasting, for example, right? If you want to become a really good podcaster, it's like, hey, study other people who have figured it out, like study other people who are really good at what they do and have that attention to detail, prepare, do some research. Like I'll never understand the podcasters that bring on guests and they don't know anything about them, right? They haven't done the
Yeah.
research. They don't know who Trey is. They don't know what you've done. And so it's, I don't know, it's always interesting. I think that preparation is super key in anything you do. So, I look up to a lot of NBA players as kind of role models in that aspect. It's like how detailed they are in their preparation, and then how like, I can apply it to anything I do. Just fascinating stuff. And like you said, at the end of the day, they are normal people, but they've achieved amazing things. And a lot of that has to do with, the ways that live their life. But again, you also have the examples of a Kobe who ate McDonald's before his 81-point game, but still balled out because that was part of his natural ability too. The guy was extremely talented at basketball.
Yeah.
So rest in peace, Kobe, man. We miss you. Um, what would you say were your specific values or principles that you picked up along the way that have enabled you to find success, whether it's, working at the athletic, whether it's anything that you have going on in the future? Like, what values or principles do you live your life by that you think other people could apply to their own lives?
Well, I mean, honestly, the one thing I would honestly say is like being kind, working hard, and just, those two great things follow. You know what I mean? And discipline. Discipline is like one of the worst, the one word that can take you and grant. Discipline is a genie of the lamp, honestly. Like for real. Like if you want to be skinny, you want to have this great body, you go to the gym every day, you eat every day, you know what's putting in your body. If you want to be a good basketball player, you work on your craft, you do everything. You know what I mean? Like you're not cutting any corners. You want to be great at your job, you get up early, you do all these things, you go through the steps and this thing. Discipline. That's it. Like, you know what I mean? And like if you ask a lot of people about me, they say either I'm humble, which I disagree. I don't know. I don't think I'm arrogant or anything, but I do think that there has to be some type of confidence there, right? But that I'm a good person, and I'm like that. That's something that I learned from my grandma. Like I'm always gonna be a good person, regardless. Like I do have compassion. I do move with a purpose. You know what I mean? Like I'm never too big or too good to take time out to talk to people or learn. You know what I mean? Or have conversations or speak to people or these things. And you know what I mean? Like again, just being dedicated to the things I really want, and it just kind of turns out. You know what I mean? Like I've been able to do so much in such little time on earth that um, I'm amazed at it. The things that I was able to accomplish. You know what I mean? I feel like I've had five multiple lives. I just continue to be blessed. You know what I mean? 3 days ago, I won Innovator of the Year for Ad Color. So I'm just, I'm grateful. But it also starts with the work. It's not like nothing's given. It's not like, oh, I'm funny on Twitter and this is why I'm going to get stuff, or I know this person. You know what I mean? Like, you only can get so much. Like somebody can walk you there, but you gotta finish the path yourself. There's
You do
no
have some funny
elevator to
tweets, man.
success.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
will
I mean,
say though, your tweets are funny, man. I got to give you that.
as a copywriter, I gotta practice. So
Yeah.
I use Twitter as practice. Just playing with how many words. Sometimes I'm seeing how many words I can actually use, different tone of voice, different things. Not saying that my followers are case studies, but I like to see different ways of writing and what works and what doesn't work. Why did this go viral? Why did it not, why didn't people like this? Why what was special about it? The engagement, you know what I mean? Like different things. What time did I post it? You know what I mean? Like it's all thought out on how things. And then sometimes it's just a J.R. Smith with it. I'm just, high volume shooting and I'm just spewing stuff out and some stuff sticks and some doesn't.
You talked about some of the values and principles that you follow. So being kind is one of them. I think in sports, one of the big questions for many athletes is what legacy do you want to leave? Like what do you want people to remember you for? For you personally, Trey, what type of legacy do you want to leave? Like if people think of Trey, like what do you want them to first think of, and how do you want to be remembered by those who love you?
It's a good question. I'm not crazy about legacies. You know what I mean? Like we hear, you know what I mean? Um, I just honestly just want to be remembered by like how I live my life, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, to the fullest. And the fullest might not be much, man. It's just like I just look at it like I enjoyed the ride, man. Like I did stuff that I wanted to do, that I wanted to create, the art that I wanted to put out, and just going out that way. You know what I mean? Because like I think at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's just like it's hard to find people chase happiness their entire life, and I try not to even focus on that. I just take it one day at a time because nothing's really guaranteed. So yeah, if people want to remember me for something, they know that I really cared about the stuff I did, and that I like the whole idea of people paying it forward. You know what I mean? I had people help me, so if I can help somebody, I always tell them like, yo, you don't owe me no favor, but do it for the next person. And I think that's been working out for me really well.
That's amazing. I mean, that's great advice. And Trey, as we wrap up this episode, one of the things that I like to do is basically have my current guest give a piece of advice to the next guest. And so you're not going to know who the next guest is, but if you could give basically a random person any one piece of advice, and we've talked a little bit about some of your values and the legacy that you want to leave behind, but one piece of advice for life, for career, anything you want, what would that piece of advice be?
Man, yeah, I mean, just like you know, more like I wish I had something profound to say, but like honestly, it would just be present. Like for real, be present in the things that you do. I struggle with it a lot, but you know, be present because you might miss out on some stuff that's it's really happening around here.
That's
Try to be
fantastic.
present
I
as
love it.
possible. Yeah, that's it. Just be
No,
present.
I
I
love it.
mean, with the phones and stuff now going on, it's easy to get distracted. You know, our attention span is getting shorter and shorter by the day.
Yep. No, I love it. And especially with that mindset of always thinking ahead, right? Like always, kind of reaching your goals and then saying, all right, now what? All right, cool. I got here, I did this. Now what? Now, what's next? So I really like that advice. And I think it's something that I've been working on a lot recently is enjoying the journey, man. Like you don't really realize how awesome it is to be in the thick of something, and to be in the thick of a journey, to your path to success, whatever that is. It's a lot of fun, and I think you look back on it, as I'm sure you probably look back on your moments, with the Entourage and other experiences that you've had in your life, and you're like, dude, that was actually, that was awesome, that was sick, that was an experience that I might not get ever again, and it's a unique experience that not many people had. So I love that piece of advice. That's amazing stuff. Trey, anywhere that people can find you, social media, anything you want to plug?
On Twitter or X at Trayvon, and on Instagram at Trayvon Edwards. And follow or like, subscribe our podcast, Black Opinions Matter on Count Dings Network, or you can follow all the pods on Count Dings Network. Still supporting me, and yeah, I'm Trayvon Edwards on Threads too. So yeah, man, thank you for this platform. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Absolutely. And all of your links will be in the description. So if you want to check out any of the stuff that Trey is working on, or if you want to check him out on social media, check out the description and all those links will be there. Trey, my man, can't thank you enough. This has been an awesome podcast. Really enjoyed talking to you. You're a man of many experiences and a man whose journey I think is extremely unique. And I love what you've done up to this point, and I love what you continue to do. So keep it up, and let's hopefully stay in touch. Thanks again for your time.
Appreciate you.